For the first time in a long time, the guy decided to take his girlfriend to a cafe. It was evening. Nothing foreshadowed anything bad. And then she starts a very serious conversation. She didn't even explain anything. She told him straight out that she wanted to break up. He wanted to bite off a sausage, but after hearing these words, his appetite immediately disappeared. The guy could not have imagined that she would say this right here, right now. It seemed to him that at least today they would be able to have a quiet dinner, spend time together without any such conversations, although this had been going on for a long time. She tells him that she has already made up her mind. She doesn't want to be with him. And in general, she's starting to get irritated by literally everything, even the way he breathes and looks at her. There have been problems in this relationship for a long time. The guy has long been morally ready to discuss this, but it is very clear from him how she is with all this at the wrong time. Considering today, when he first decided to treat her and wanted to relax, he asked her to name at least one reason why it was so urgent to discuss this right now, and not, for example, on the way home. The lady exhaled heavily. She doesn't even know where to start and how to properly present everything to him so that he understands how serious everything is. Pedro is really neat and handsome. Compared to him, the girl sometimes even feels like a gray mouse, and that's putting it mildly. At first, she thought that maybe it was wrong to behave like that, and she should be grateful for what he did for her. But she just wants to be happy and be with the person she loves. She never had money to buy herself nice clothes, but it wasn't because she didn't have any. She just spent it all to dress up her boyfriend. He was never shy about hinting that every time they went somewhere, he needed a new suit. And she, in fear that he would leave her, did everything for him and gave him her last money. Apparently, she realized that this could not continue any longer. Before this relationship, she did not have enough money for herself. And with the appearance of this man in her life, the girl, although she began to live in better conditions, does not feel happy with him. In the end, she told him that she didn't want to explain anything anymore. He already understood everything perfectly, so he suggested that they break up quickly and peacefully. Pedro pretends not to understand what came over her, and that smile? It seems like his favorite manipulation is about to begin, as it seems to him the only reason why she decided to leave him is some other guy whom she helped to meet somewhere. Since he started talking like that, Elin agreed to tell the reason why she wants to leave him, although he already understands everything perfectly well. Firstly, he cheated on her too many times. Night with Lisa, her classmate at the academy a few months ago, and ending with Meryl, his colleague, Pedro tried to have an affair with everyone, even with the girl's sister, while not hiding it much. On the contrary, he seems to be proud of it and it is visible. But he says all this, that it is absolutely normal to sometimes give in to temptations, and asked if he would cheat at all if she treated him well, and did not show how she does not care about him. Before this conversation, the girl turned on the microphone so that all his words would be recorded. Now she received evidence of all his betrayals, and now, when her feelings had already cooled, these words at least did not hurt her heart. After that, she said another reason for the divorce. Pedro thinks too highly of himself. He is only a third-circle magician, as if he considers himself some kind of god. To this, he was able to answer, and that she herself is only a first-circle magician, which means he has nothing more to say. And now Elin is ready to name the third reason, which became decisive, and she is very sorry that she did not notice it at the beginning. He is a master of extorting money. If you count how much she has spent on him over all this time, it is thousands of times more than he spent on her. He responds to all this with some answers that she is also far from beautiful, and this is very low, especially from a man, which, as it turns out, he never was. After that, she started naming other reasons, and she got to the 15th point, and at that moment, people gathered around them to listen to this showdown. It's already morning outside, and she continues to tell why they should break up and what she doesn't like about him. The guy couldn't even imagine that there are so many points. Some of the cafe's patrons even stayed until this time to listen to the end of it all, and of all those present. Only Pedro couldn't stand it and asked her to stop. Elin warned that if he said one more word to her, she would come back and continue her list. He tells her that it was also ridiculous that he doesn't even have words to comment on anything, and she thought that it was for the best. Finally, the guy said something strange, that she had been acting lately as if she had returned from the other world. The girl couldn't stand it. She stopped, turned to him. Apparently, she had something else that he needed to hear. She looked him in the eye very closely and said, "What if she told him that she really had returned from the other world?" And after that, she advised him to think about whether it was true or not. At that moment, Aline began to remember with pain inside how trusting she had been, constantly spending money on her family and lover, and they only took advantage of it. My sister literally came up to me every day and asked for money, she needed to buy dresses, and Elin didn't know how to refuse. One day, when my sister came, she first hinted that she should clean her glasses, as if it was no wonder that Pedro was cheating on her, and she didn't notice it. Apparently, this was exactly the case when he tried to have fun with her, and she refused him and drove him away. When the girl asked what other betrayal and what was it all about, the sister seemed to understand that she had said too much and began to leave. Remaining in the room, it was the first time she seriously thought about whether her whole life was going in the direction she didn't want it to go in. Then, she began to remember all those situations that she tried to ignore. The words of her lover that she had become different from the one he fell in love with. All those constant hints that it wouldn't hurt her to lose weight. Enemies who enjoyed watching her suffer constantly advised her to protect this relationship and not even look at someone else. Even my mother was the kind of person who didn't support, but on the contrary, consumed both her money and her energy. She hinted that she had too many expenses next month and that it would be nice if her beloved daughter helped out somehow. But in the end, she named an amount several times larger than actually needed, without spending a single penny of her own. Elin was too kind to her loved ones all this time. She just had the attitude that she should help them because that's what's needed. Although at the same time, she didn't even wait for congratulations on her birthday. Meanwhile, the girl is already running from that cafe because if she sees that unpleasant face again, she will simply go crazy. She didn't really eat anything, and in this state, it became impossible to run for a long time in the cold, through the strong wind. It became hard for her to breathe. Her legs wouldn't obey her. Her body wanted to stop, but she ran through force and thus only made things worse for herself. Elin didn't notice how she fell on the cold floor. At that moment, she didn't care about anything, even about herself. She is exhausted in every sense of the word. The girl has lost the meaning of life. She doesn't even have a person in her circle to whom she can complain about her problems and who doesn't need anything from her. She suffered from a stress-related illness and died of a heart attack, and at that very moment, all the memories of her past life came back. Before the girl reincarnated as Elin, she lived in South Korea, was a proud worker named Yoon Si-jin. She did her job brilliantly and did it incredibly hard, as if she knew that sooner or later it would lead her to the desired result. Her boss was always surprised how she could know programming if she specialized in marketing, but she just studied it before and believed that you can't properly do marketing without understanding what the development team is referring to. And above all, she was the one who could speak out against injustice. When she realized that the contractor would abuse his ward until he went crazy, she began to demand justice, even though it was not her business. She was never afraid of anything and said what she really thought because she didn't care what others thought. She was the complete opposite of Elin, who tries to please everyone and doesn't know how to refuse, even when she sees that people don't deserve it. After her third rebirth, when Pedro asked her out on a date just to ask for money, she rejoiced internally because she understood that she could fix everything and put everything in its place, as it was high time and in the meantime, she somehow miraculously found herself at home and is already thinking about the fact that she has memories of her past life, what it was like, and realized that here she definitely won't be hindered by the character of Yoon Si-jin. In honor of her rebirth, the first thing she planned to do, something that Elin was even afraid to think about until the moment when another person entered this body. She threw her ex in the trash like a banana peel on the very first day, and now she can finally celebrate this first small victory. I wonder what will happen next, and will this man try to get his comfortable life back? Only now he doesn't even imagine that Elin is no longer the naive girl he met. The next day came. For some reason, she suddenly decided to arrange another meeting with him, agreed to come at the same time as last time. And all this in order to ask one question: does he really not want to break up with her so much? And if so, then she wants to demand the truth. What is holding him back? The manipulations begin. He already says that he was thinking about marrying her, but she treated him in such a way that he changed his mind and doubts her very much. In fact, she had specially ordered a cup of hot coffee in advance, knew he would say something like that, and poured the whole cup on him. When she pretended to want to listen to him, in reality it was a distraction to say once again that there could be nothing more between them. And while he was lying on the floor all in hot, wet clothes, she came closer and very quietly whispered that there was no place for someone like him in her life anymore. Elin also said that she was leaving him so that he wouldn't say later that it was he who left her and wanted to break up himself. At that moment, a waitress passed by. The girl asked her to stop, took a huge flatbread, and invited everyone who wanted to watch this performance. She wants to put an end to this conversation by throwing this pancake right in his face. It's very hot, it left a burn on his cheek, and it's definitely better than a regular slap, which he wouldn't even feel. The girl said that she really wanted to do this since yesterday and could hardly wait for this moment because if she hadn't done it, she would never have forgiven herself for such a mistake. He fully deserves it. Even the waitress agreed with this. She whispered that she would have done exactly the same and maybe even come up with something more interesting. After that, Elin smiled sweetly, waved her hand at him, and finally wished him a good day, although she doubts that without her, there will be anything good in his life at all. Now, she can calmly start a new life. It feels as if even the weather and the environment around her have adjusted to this situation, and she gets incredible pleasure from literally everything around her. It would seem that there are no more things to do, but only now she remembered that there are also relatives with whom she will also have to communicate. She's wanted to break up with them for a long time. Maybe she can't afford to buy a house yet, but she can definitely move somewhere, and the money will appear somehow. Since palace employees can use the official residence on the palace grounds for free, that's where she's headed. The residence is a bit outdated, but it is still livable, and this will be the first place where she will live for some time. Elin just approached this building, saw a sign that immediately upset her and crossed out all her plans. It says that the reconstruction will begin in 3 days. The building has received the final approval of His Majesty the Emperor. If you think about it, before its rebirth, the official residence was transformed into something dazzling. Now we need to think about what to do next. It looks like she will have to look for another place and we need to find money for it. The girl was already thinking about leaving, but she saw some note attached below the ad. She read everything that was written there and realized that she had the opportunity to stay here for 3 days until the reconstruction began. And during this time, she will easily be able to find a place to stay and maybe even manage to earn some money. At least that's what she thought, and in her head, it all looked much better than it actually turned out to be. She didn't take into account one very important point. Meanwhile, the girl is already at her workplace in the Knight's Palace department. She remembered that a few days ago her family took all her salary. At this rate, she will soon be left on the street. Then Elin began to calm herself down. Supposedly, everything was fine. After all, she had survived the death itself, so nothing could scare her anymore. Meanwhile, a friend approached her and told her that Fiona was getting married, and then asked if she had received any invitation, but the girl had not received anything like that. The guy is sure the invitation will come soon. And he also heard that Fiona hasn't even moved out yet and no one knows where she's going to live. Elin tells him that she must have some kind of plan because it can't be that such important moments are not thought out in advance. In Elin's past life, Fiona managed to acquire her own home, thanks to a program of subsidized housing for young families. This program, designed for newlyweds, grants the right to move into the honeymoon area to those who pass the selection process. And this area, it is located not far from the Imperial Palace. Naturally, everything is luxurious there. There is a large territory inside. Everything you can only dream of is provided. The house is built in an exquisite architectural style and offers all the furniture of the best quality, and this applies to everything else that can be seen inside the house. Unfortunately, due to poor marketing, many people were unaware of this program. In short, submitting an application automatically guarantees acceptance. If Elin was going to get married, she would have applied right away. But if she could find a normal groom, she wouldn't have any problems. The guy started telling just in time that Fiona mentioned something about a preferential program and handed out leaflets, and also advised him to try it. It says that the first stage of preferential provision of housing to young families is beginning, but applicants must register their marriage strictly before August, and then the girl thought that it was some kind of coincidence. She was leaving the residence that very day, and in the meantime, the guy said goodbye because he needed to prepare for the inspection. A couple of hours passed. They met again on the street, and as usual, he didn't stop telling her something. For some reason, he started saying that she was lucky in some way, but she didn't understand what he was talking about and asked why he thought so. It turns out that the knight who will be inspecting something with them today is the same Sir Dillan that everyone really wants to meet. The guy thought that he would make her very happy, but he got upset because she was too indifferent, as if she was hinting that she was not interested in him, especially since he was sure that Sir Dillan was one of those that every girl admires. To which she replied that if you think about it, that knight is a commoner. But at the same time, he occupies a high position. He is an elite knight in the Emperor's personal guard. So many respect him. For an ordinary person to join the Emperor's personal knightly order, he needs to win the annual fencing tournament held personally by His Majesty and Sir Dillan, the famous knight who won this tournament. And if it weren't for all this, he wouldn't be so famous. Mike even admitted that if he were a girl, he would definitely not pass by such a guy and would not miss any opportunity to see him. He is so beautiful. If even guys say that, it means that Dillan really is one of the cutest guys worth paying attention to. You never know. The girl had never seen him in person. She had only heard from friends that people fall in love with him at first sight. It's just strange that he still doesn't have a girlfriend, although maybe he's just not interested. And if he needed a relationship, he would find someone very quickly. Mike goes on to say that, on top of that, he is over 190 centimeters tall, broad-shouldered, well-muscled, and when he smiles, it seems like spring flowers are blooming even in winter. It sounds like he is a young girl who has just recently fallen in love with him. Ellen thought so. She kept silent so as not to offend him. And she thought to herself that if he was so perfect, then his appearance should be the least of his worries. It even became interesting to hear about some of his shortcomings. Everyone knows that he always has the same facial expression for all occasions. He looks the same when he is happy, when he is suffering or sad, and so with all other emotions. Elin thinks that this is not a disadvantage at all. It is just a person's peculiarity. Or maybe he is like this with strangers, but with friends and relatives he is very smiling and talkative. Still, she can't imagine why such an impressive person would want to do warehouse maintenance. Maybe he just likes this kind of work, or he wanted to have something to do with it as a child. There could be many reasons, and in the meantime they all got to work. A little later that same night joined them, and from the first second, as soon as he appeared, she did not take her eyes off him. Tries to do his job and at the same time watches him and thinks that it is unnoticeable, although it is not so. She noticed that he was doing well, so focused that he seemed not to notice anyone around him. Although she wouldn't mind talking to him and getting to know him, she is impressed not only by his speed, but also by the way he removes rust and cleans the sword, but also by the fact that he aligns the cleaned balls with absolute precision. It is clear that this man is a perfectionist in everything he touches. A very good impression has already been formed about him, and he hasn't even mentioned it. Eileen didn't think she would be so distracted by him that even Mike was standing next to her, and she didn't notice him. He was trying to distract her, and she was like she had headphones on. He just got bored. He wanted to talk about how she had a fight with Pedro. The guy heard that our reel had thrown bread at him, although he didn't expect that from her, and at first didn't even believe that she could do that. He absolutely supports her in the fact that it was time to break up with that person a long time ago. And when she heard this, her mood even improved. And he also remembered that she took a leaflet for those newlyweds and thought that she decided to go back to Pedro to get a house. He immediately began to dissuade her and does not even hear what she tells him. The lady explains that she will not go back to her ex, when suddenly, Dillan decided to remind them that they are not alone here and that their personal life is not interesting to him. He bent the metal sword so much that it made a terribly unpleasant sound that made it impossible to stay in the room. No one understood what had just happened. Mike was afraid to talk to him, but Elin didn't keep silent. She asked him what was wrong, and he replied that it was a mistake, but she didn't quite understand what that meant. And he also started talking about some misunderstanding, and they still didn't understand what he was talking about. After that, he completely broke the sword. The metal shattered into pieces. It's good that no one was hurt. But when he said the word marriage, there can only be two options. What he meant by that? Either a defective sword, or he wanted to say something about her relationship or give some advice. Maybe he knows the person they were talking about, although it is very unlikely. The girl apologized for distracting him and still asked what he meant, to which the guy replied that maybe it was none of his business. But she really better not meet that person, like Mike said a couple of minutes ago. In his opinion, she shouldn't waste a second of her time on Pedro. I just wonder what he knows about him and how to understand it. When she was talking to her friend, she couldn't even imagine that the knight knew Pedro. It's almost impossible. He didn't just tell her it was a bad idea. He literally insisted that she should never marry him. Otherwise, she would regret it for a long time, and it wouldn't be so easy to break up a second time. And also, he called her by name, after which she simply lost her speech. Apparently, he knows much more than she could have thought. She has no words. Only emotions appear, but they are so mixed that she can't even really answer him. Mike sits to the side and also doesn't understand what just happened. He doesn't even know whether to join them or not. And they are not so afraid of him that they did not want to ask him what he knows about this situation, and for him to explain a little. What is what? The girl felt very ashamed that everyone already knew what a wimp she was. And now she needed to answer him something. She simply said that she wasn't going to marry him anyway, and then thanked him for the advice. But for some reason, he wasn't completely sure of her words, and reacted as if he was her friend who had talked about it a lot and often, and she could act differently. A very strange situation. It's as if he knows that there will be some situation that will be able to convince her, and maybe Pedro himself will do it. At that moment, he smiled in a special way, and now the girl understood what kind of smile everyone was talking about. After this, you can really fall in love. You want to watch it for a very long time, and if it weren't for this unpleasant conversation, everything would be much better. Such a smile really creates spring. Even in the midst of winter, the girl felt warmth inside and does not understand how it works. It takes her breath away. Her whole body literally reaches out to him. And he smiles so much that it's impossible to tell what it means, whether he's laughing at her or something else. In any case, it can be assumed that since he smiles at her like that, he definitely doesn't hate her, especially since he just gave her good advice, which means he wishes her well. When the knight was already thinking about continuing his business in order to be freed sooner, she tells him that she will soon get married anyway, no matter who her chosen one will be. He asked her why she was talking like that, as if she didn't think it was a good idea to marry just anyone. Mike behind her can no longer restrain himself. He literally goes crazy from such abrupt turns of events. In the end, she thanked him for his help, said it was very kind of him, and decided not to discuss her life with a man she had known for less than half an hour. And Dillan reacted as if he wanted to say something else and was upset that she left like that, out of the blue. In order not to waste time, they started working very quickly. After all, they talked for too long, and because of this they had to hurry. Meanwhile, several hours have passed. The girl is finally free, she has no more plans for today, so she decided to take a quiet walk down the street. She was in such a hurry that she made a lot of mistakes, which is why she had to redo a lot of things. She was angry with herself, but she is finally free and tries not to think about anything like that anymore. If it were up to her, she would return to the residence right now and rest, but first she needs to check something. She can't just go on vacation. She could, but she decided to go to her parents' house, which she calls cursed. She doesn't like even walking past it. Meanwhile, she accidentally saw that some letter had arrived. It said, "For Lady Eileen, from the Vugwa Trade Credit Bureau." This means that her family took out another loan in her name. No matter how it sounds, the girl is already used to it, and for her, it is not something new. When suddenly, she heard some voices, hid behind the wall and began to eavesdrop on the conversation. A woman is sitting in the yard with Pedro. She asks him if he and Eileen really broke up, to which he tells her that it's true. And since things turned out this way, he's thinking about dating a certain girl, even though he's dated a lot of girls before. But now he has a clear conscience. He's a single guy, and he thinks, why not start a new relationship? He is not one of those who are sad for a long time, and it is very strange that he is not afraid to admit this to Eileen's mother. It is she, the woman, who asks him not to rush after all. It seems to her that they could have some kind of happy future. And at this moment, the girl thinks about how these two have a knack for saying crazy things as if it were completely normal. The girl's mother knows about his mistresses. He always tells her what he thinks. And after all this, she tells them not to rush into breaking up. Meanwhile, he tells that he will soon receive the title of magician. It will be in just a few months, and after that he asked when exactly Lorelei's family will regain their noble title. Nowadays, the girls have the status of ordinary people, but originally they were fallen nobles. Even before she was born, the family faced difficulties, and they were forced to sell their title to other people for 300 million. And in the meantime, the woman says that they are going to take out a loan for the same amount in the name of their daughter. So very soon, everything will return to how it was. The woman assures that their daughter is very reliable, so she will pay off this loan in the shortest possible time, and there is no need to worry about it. And she also said that even if something goes wrong, it's not a big deal, because the late emperor introduced a policy of family above all else. The former emperor hated single parents, people living alone and illegitimate children. That's why he promoted the model of a normal family, 2 parents and children within the framework of his policy, family above all. It allowed direct blood relatives to freely use each other to get loans. Eileen thinks that this is an absolutely ridiculous and terrible law, because of which she has nothing but problems. Meanwhile, these two already have their own perfect plan, how both of them will become nobles. The mother already has her daughter's administrative ID and their family certificate, so she plans to use all of this to get a loan the day after tomorrow. Naturally, she recorded all of this on her dictaphone from beginning to end and is very glad that she came here right now. It was timely, like never before. And on the way back, she thinks that as soon as she breaks ties with them, a new life will begin, which she wanted to start for a very long time. They will finally understand how hard it is to live in debt that they didn't even take on. how pathetic and humiliating it is to live like a nobody, desperately trying to make ends meet while others watch from all sides. Elin will definitely make sure that justice appears in her life and that everyone gets what they deserve. Here, she already came to a lawyer in the city center. He gave her marriage contracts and notarized documents, and also said that, as already said, if she wants to prevent her family from using her name, the only way is adoption or marriage, so it is worth thinking about it and acting quickly. And also, even if the lady does get married, it wouldn't hurt to make sure that her husband can't take out loans in her name by signing the mutual agreement he just gave her before the marriage. The girl has it all figured out, and now she just needs to find a man who will marry her. As soon as she said goodbye to the lawyer, she realized that talking about it was much easier than acting. Finding the perfect person to trust is not so easy. She wanted to sit near the training ground of the knightly order. It was a pity that she couldn't just grab a random knight here and ask him to marry her, although she had such thoughts too. Suddenly, the girl didn't notice him all this time, but when they started talking about him, she looked at him and she felt very awkward because he might think that she came for him. The moment their eyes met, she remembered yesterday's conversation, and probably he did too. This kind young man who spoke to her with concern in his eyes gives her a special feeling. It's a pity that there are no guys like him around. She would gladly marry such a man even today. Then she tried to stop thinking about it. After all, it was impossible for someone as perfect as he was to marry her. Perhaps she needed to find some more realistic option. Let these thoughts remain in dreams for now. Dreams, after all, it's wonderful, and that's all she can do for now. In the meantime, we need to forget about Dillan a little. The main thing now is to focus on the candidates. It's just a pity that there aren't that many of them. Criteria of her ideal husband: first point, average appearance; second, not interested in her; third, has good manners. Based on this, a list of potential candidates is formed. The first candidate, Sir Tov. He is a very good person, never advises something bad, sincerely worries about her when she has problems. So far, among the knights, he is the closest person to her. But for some reason, she hadn't thought about it before. Currently, beside candidate 2, Mike. Even though he is not a knight, she also included him in this list. He is in the end. However, she thought that she couldn't just sit back and do nothing. She needed to use the time and opportunity as productively as possible. First, she chose Sir Tov. He asked, "What was the matter?" And she asked him to find a minute to walk with her to the storage room next to the training ground and explained that it was very important. The guy immediately agreed. He had just done everything. The training was over, and he was also very bored and became interested in finding out how he could help her. She didn't walk with him calmly, but immediately started running somewhere and asked him to follow her, without even greeting the other 2 knights. The girl is so nervous that she doesn't even notice how she looks from the outside. It was a little wrong on her part, but that's how it is. One can only hope that he is not a very touchy person and will not change his mind about going after her. And she is already waiting for him. The lady has no idea whether he will be interested in her proposal. At least she will do everything in her power. And if they are not destined to get married, then they need to look for someone else. What she is most ashamed of is that if he refuses, the guy might tell his friends about it and it will be terrible. Here, all that remains is to hope for his conscience. And finally, she heard that someone had come in. She rehearsed her speech in just 1 second, but she looked closely and realized that this person's hair was much darker, and it seemed that it wasn't him. I wonder what Dillan is doing here. She didn't invite him here, and it's strange that he might have some business here. She had already started thinking about what to say if he asked her to leave here. She had a very important conversation here, and everything was happening at the wrong time. He came closer to her, and she asked where Sir Tov was because he was supposed to come here, and she doesn't understand anything. Elin expected to hear anything from him, but Dillan apologized for having to tell her that. But Tov had just died. The girl thought that she had misheard or that it was some kind of joke, because she clearly remembers that literally, a moment ago, he was an explosion, and nothing like that should happen to him. The guy explains that he somehow lost control of his power, and then doesn't finish because he realizes that she already understood everything. Elin is completely confused, and for some reason he also said that if necessary, he can give him something. Only now it's unclear how he can give something to a person who is not alive. Elin was too confused. She even started to think that maybe the guy was overheated in the sun and everything he said could not be taken seriously. That was the only hope. Suddenly, the window opens. A strong draft appears. She weakly holds the sheet of paper, and it immediately slips out of her hand. She already thought that now he would fly out into the street and everyone who was not too lazy would read it. But Dillan caught it, and she immediately calmed down. Elin didn't think that he could accidentally read all of this, and that's how it all happened. All he had to do was see the headline and he reacted as if he cared. The guy asks how to understand this. How did she even get to this point, and was Tav really on this list? And also at the end it says, reasons why a guy should marry me. First point, I am a pretty diligent and reliable person. Second point, I can say with confidence that I will never fall in love for real. She started to tear this piece of paper out of his hands. After that, she felt ashamed to look him in the eyes, and of course, she couldn't think of anything better than to just run away, as if nothing had happened. The girl started crying. She was so ashamed that she wanted to fall through the ground. It was impossible. He doesn't even know how to react to this, and it's also strange that he's even getting into this matter, as if he cares about her. As it usually happens, to relieve stress, she came to a local establishment, where the prices are low and the atmosphere is very cozy. The girl invited her friend, warned that there was a lot to tell him, which meant that the evening would be long. Now that she had a little to drink, the embarrassment had somehow disappeared. Although initially she was afraid that she wouldn't even be able to tell him everything. But everything just happened somehow by itself. Henry asks her what the girl will do now, and she answers that since they have already touched on this topic, she has one question for him. But she started from afar. Elin asked him how much he knew that the real estate market never falls and will only grow. He said that he knew this very well and asked where she was leading with this. Only after that did she explain that she had already come up with a way to help her get her own home, and that she needed his help with this. They need to get married and then they can both move to the newlyweds area. At first she thought she was just thinking about it, but as it turned out, she said it all out loud. She had nothing left to lose. She even promised him that she would never ever fall in love with him, and that they could separate as soon as their contract ended. Even though Elin understands that it's unlikely that anyone would be interested, she's still a little offended that he didn't immediately say, "Sure, let's get married. It's a great idea. I'm ready to sign anything." Instead, he said that he was very sad, that she mistook him for the wrong person, because he thought that in all the time they had known each other, she had at least gotten to know him a little. He recalled how he had said many times that he dreamed of marrying for love, and what she was offering him was not quite what he was interested in. He so wants to wait for the moment when he will go on dates with his beloved girl, treat her to sweets, and he especially dreams of proposing to her. After hearing all this, the girl realized that she had come to the wrong person, so she thought that she would propose to that night again, if, of course, everything was okay with him. She spent the whole day outside and still hasn't had a single rest. Apparently, she's too responsible about her future. She is very sorry that everything turned out to be very difficult, although she understands perfectly well that there is a very small probability that she is going to a person who will benefit from this. Even she wouldn't agree to something like that because she too always dreamed of loving someone truly. Suddenly, out of nowhere, someone's silhouette appears. She didn't even immediately understand who it was. She screamed so loudly that he even had to approach her faster, so that she would recognize him faster. Elin loudly asks him who he is. How can he scare people like that? And it's Dillan, who just decided to take a walk before bed because it's very useful. She felt very awkward about this situation and the one they never discussed. This time running away is definitely not an option because, at the very least if he wants to, he will still catch up with her. The guy admitted that he has been here for a long time because he knows that she often passes by here. This made her a little wary, but then he said that he wanted to ask her something. It wouldn't be surprising if it was about a past situation. He very calmly approached her closer, and then reassured her that if she did not want to answer, then he would no longer force her or chase her. He's just interested in knowing why she's trying so hard to marry him. And in general, judging by the fact that they're not even friends with him, why she needs to get married so urgently. She told him that, to be honest, it doesn't have to be that guy. She's willing to marry anyone if he meets her criteria. Dillan had never heard of anything like this. He didn't even think that such a thing could happen. He couldn't even imagine why she needed it. After that, she was afraid that she had said too much, said goodbye to him, and said that she hoped that she had answered his question. Elin didn't have time to run even a couple of meters. He asked her to stop and even held her by the dress a little. He immediately apologized for it. He just wasn't used to talking to girls, so he didn't think it was ugly. And then he told her the most interesting thing, that if it could be anyone, then he had a proposal for her. He could become this person, unless of course he has some serious shortcomings that would cause her to refuse him. After such words, Elin thought that she would immediately lose consciousness. But in the end, she held out. She just doesn't believe that she heard such words from him. Maybe this was just a dream or some kind of joke. It felt like a moment had passed. The next day had arrived, and she was lying in bed, and she is surprised at how eventful yesterday was. She even wants to hope that half of the memories are just a dream. And the girl also feels really bad because of that extra last glass that her friend talked her into. Maybe she shouldn't have listened to him. Elin clutches her head. Her head hurts so much that the worst thing that can happen now is if someone comes to her, especially with bad news or a request. It's strange, but she can't remember if the conversation with the knight was real or if it was a dream. Even though it was very realistic, she is almost sure that this could not happen in real life and tries not to think about it anymore. Meanwhile, the maid knocked on the door, apologized for disturbing. She just came to say that she had a visitor. Elin clearly remembers that she wasn't expecting anyone. She didn't really have time to get ready. And already there were some guests, exactly what she didn't want. The assistant was sure that the girl was waiting for this man, so she didn't give his name. She just said that she saw a huge bouquet of flowers on him. Elin didn't even have time to ask who came to her. This person had already found her room and entered without permission. He literally immediately said that he had come to propose and got down on one knee, which almost made the girl faint. It turns out that that dream wasn't a dream at all. She now has no words to describe everything that she feels. The girl understands what is happening, but at the same time, she constantly feels like all this is not real, and she is also very confused by the fact that she did not even offer him anything. It is only his desire. And could it really mean that he liked her? Maybe that's why he was so interested in why she wanted to get married. Elin clutches her head. She realizes that it was she who brought him to this. And just the thought of how sincere his desire could be makes her just about go crazy. The lady couldn't even imagine that her plan would end up with such a result. She didn't initially plan to ask him for help. She didn't even want to tell him anything. And in the end, he came to her. In the morning, he had flowers in his hands and he said in plain words that he wanted to propose to her. The girl has no idea how he could make such a decision, but she is a little afraid to ask about it. Suddenly, he will react to it somehow in the wrong way. But if you look at the situation from the outside, if she misses such a chance, others will continue to ruin her life again and again. She doesn't know why, but she feels that by entering into a contract marriage with this guy, everything in her life will be better. Elin apologized to him that she thought for a long time and still said that she agreed to marry him and that she was very pleased. And she hasn't yet thought about the fact that it's unlikely that there is any benefit for him in all this. Most likely, his decision is connected with sincere feelings. After she agreed, they came to the living room, and she reminded that, as she said yesterday, she already had a ready contract. Dillan asks to bring this contract. He is going to sign it, and it doesn't seem like it is important for him to know what is written there. Suddenly, he would owe her something, or he would not be satisfied with some points. She nevertheless suggested that he read at least half. It's such an awkward moment that they started to remain silent and didn't notice how they remained silent for more than 10 minutes. In the meantime, the contract spells out everything that is necessary concerning such things as respect for each other's privacy and other conditions necessary for everyday life. At some point, for some reason, he asked her to wait 1 minute, as if he had found something that did not suit him. Elin had been sure before that there was not a single point there that he might not like. She asked what was the matter, and he pointed to the 5th point, which is called divorce. Only the girl doesn't quite understand what's wrong here, so it seems to her that for a person who signs a fictitious marriage, these conditions must be luxurious. Is he really marrying her for some other reason, not just to help? Her words about how they could easily get divorced sounded to him like a huge cliff underground. He even felt it a little on himself. When she asked if the standard annual contract term was too long for him, he very much wanted to say that it was, on the contrary, too short. I wonder how he will explain all this. It is very difficult for him now, Dillan said very quietly. That it is not about that at all. After a while, he got to the last point. It says that depending on the situation, there is a possibility of considering the issue of extending the marriage. And at the end, it says that this point can be cancelled if one of the participants wishes. This at least made him a little happy, but the guy still didn't tell her a lot and now regrets it. Out of the blue, he asked when the house would be available for occupancy, because if it was from today, then they could already pack their things. Elin asked if he was going to come straight away, to which he replied that he would first visit his brother and then go straight to the house. The guy decided that from today on he should try to win her over. He plans to cook dinner and invites her for the evening. Elin will try to send the contract to the lawyer during this time. She thanked him for the invitation and, of course, agreed to come. Meanwhile, a very important conversation is taking place in the Imperial Palace. Not a single day goes by without it. The Emperor and the Duke are sitting at the same table. The man said that this time he is going to the west. This man, he bears the title of the Keeper of the Great Tower and even holds the post of Imperial Tutor. Just think, a person like him could become so fearless because of that incident that happened some time ago. There was one terrible day when people were attacked in the theater and everyone in their path was destroyed, so that almost no one survived. All this was organized by the Red Castle. It is a group that is plotting to overthrow the empire. During this attack, the custodian's son and daughter-in-law were killed in a hail of bullets fired by them, and even his 5-year-old granddaughter went missing. From that day on, all emotion disappeared from his face and never appeared again. The emperor tells him that they have tracked down a theater employee who survived the attack. He hid in a tea house in the western region, most likely somewhere there or with the help of that person. The man will be able to find the missing Lady Diana. The Duke is incredibly grateful for the help. This is the work of his whole life, and if he does not figure it out or at least find out some information, he will not forgive himself. After that, he asked how the situation was in the Grand Duchy now that winter had come, and he replied that it was as cold as usual. 300 years ago, in an ice castle, there lived a witch who ruled as a noble snow queen. One day, she accidentally met the emperor and fell in love with him, madly and unrequitedly. But the emperor was afraid, and the wound she received from this refusal forced her to cast a powerful curse on him, one that deprived him of all senses. The curse spread through the emperor's lineage, reaching even the Duke of Castile. The duchy turned into a winterland of icicles and frost, and one of the royal family was always born almost devoid of emotions. Thus, the Dukes of Castile lived out their days in the cursed castle, doomed to lifelong solitude, only to eventually go mad and die on the battlefield. But there is one exception, one man who, despite the curse, lives a different life from the very beginning. And this man, his brother, the current Duke of Castile, Dillan, who just decided to come visit his brother. His Majesty is very glad to see his brother, and the feeling is mutual. The main thing is that the Duke does not feel superfluous and the Emperor does not feel embarrassed about it. Dillan greeted the Duke of Castile as well. He didn't think they would see each other today, but it was still a very pleasant meeting. The Emperor noticed that his brother's gaze was somehow special today, not like usual, as if something was happening in his life. He just thought about it, and Dillan told them that he got married today, and that was the news he wanted to tell. It seemed to him that it would be better if it happened so quickly and unexpectedly than later, and his brother would find out about it later than everyone else. Usually relatives are happy about this. The guy is just at the age when it is time to think about it, but his brother clearly did not expect and was not ready for this. From his reaction, almost nothing is clear. He was too excited and started asking 10 questions. Dillan told him that they had known each other for some time and had registered their marriage like ordinary people. From these words, we can conclude that he is serious and has chosen a girl with whom he is going to live his whole life. They have talked about this before, and they have the same views on relationships, namely, that they would prefer to choose one partner for life than to scatter themselves on many relationships that only waste times. The guy also said that his chosen one serves in a knightly order. She is not tall, and she has a noticeable mole under her eye, but she always has it under her glasses. Some of this could have been left unsaid, but that is not important. The Emperor was puzzled as to how his younger brother had come to notice such details, because he usually could not remember what he had for breakfast if asked about it that same day in the evening. Now he understood why he felt like something was wrong with him. People in love are always like that, and it was probably good that he didn't tell them that their marriage would be by contract, and apparently only one of them had feelings, and it wasn't her. And even if she has them, then most likely she doesn't even hope that it can be mutual. The Emperor became very curious about the woman who made Dillan so happy. Today we saw for the first time a smile that the guy had never shown before, even when he was truly happy. He smiled so rarely that he probably even forgot when he saw himself happy. The late Emperor hated young Dillan. The perfect man, admired by all, became flawed and was locked for his entire life in a small house cursed by black magic outside the imperial palace. After more than a decade of imprisonment, the late emperor sent Dillan to war, intending to push him into the abyss and make him die. Thus, the boy grew up and turned into a cold and indifferent young man, worthy of the curse of the Duke of Castile. For Dillan, a perfectionist who had to constantly prove his worth in order to survive, this marriage was perhaps the only exception in his life. Although this should be obvious, the brother still asked how much he loved his bride and why he chose her. To which the guy replied that he chose her not only because of love, there was another reason, but he kept silent about it. He just said that it's not really love, it's more admiration and affection for a person, without realizing why this happens. The brother laughed and said that this is love. although perhaps he still doesn't understand something about it. Without noticing it, the emperor began to interfere in his brother's personal life as never before, although this was usually never the case. Nevertheless, in admiration, as Dillan says, there was something alarming. There was a faction within the knightly order of the imperial palace plotting to overthrow the empire. In the worst-case scenario, the person Dillan fell in love with could turn out to be a real villain. The emperor really doesn't want to think about it, but he thinks that the bride could have used black magic or some kind of love potion. Therefore, it seems to him that as his relative, he should not stand aside, and is obliged to find out what kind of person she really is and whether she is worthy of being Dillan's wife. But if you don't think about the bad, he's just interested in getting to know her, looking into her eyes, and maybe she'll make him smile just like he did with his brother. After that, he tried not to think about it at all. He already had a lot of other things to do, and then all this. So there would be no time left even for sleep. It's not just about satisfying his curiosity, he just wants to make sure whether that girl is dangerous or not. Everything else is not so important to him. Meanwhile, Elin, although she didn't really want to, still agreed to see her mother. They agreed to meet in a cafe. And then the girl comes in, looks for her, and already roughly understands what the conversation will be about. The last time she eavesdropped on them, everything fell into place. Elin has a rough idea of what topics she can discuss with her and what topics she shouldn't. And most importantly, she knows what this person is up to. She used to think about fixing her relationship with her mother. But recently she realized that this person doesn't change and doesn't deserve any efforts from her. It is very clear from her that the only thing she is interested in is profit. It has always been this way, is this way, and will be this way. Elin warned that she was not going to stay here for long, and if she didn't like the topic of conversation, she would calmly go back. Mom didn't specifically say what she wanted to discuss, so the girl has every right to say goodbye if she's not happy with something. The daughter expected to hear at least some questions from her. She thought her mother would somehow take an interest in her life, but she started from the fact that she needed a lot of money. And the woman also hints that if her daughter has extra money, she should know where to send it. But even this, she said with such an expression on her face as if she was saying this to some assistant of hers who owes her something. In fact, Elin was ready for this. She knows her mother very well, so she agreed to give her the money. But before that, she would have to sign some document. The girl knows that her mother has vision problems. She understood that the woman would not read so much, especially in an ancient language. I deliberately put the document in the middle of the table so that she would want to sign it right away, without looking, and get her money. And that's how it all worked out. The woman thinks that everything is so easy, but her daughter is not the same as before, and very soon she will find out. Elin will definitely make sure that no one will want to ask her for a penny anymore. In the Empire, only 2 languages are officially used. One of them is the common imperial language, and the other is the ancient language of the Empire. Nobles usually learn the ancient language from an early age, but Lady Molly, who lived for several decades as a fallen noblewoman, at first she was not very smart, so she completely forgot even those few words of the ancient language that she once learned. But her daughter easily learned the ancient language, since she attended the academy and devoted a lot of time to studying. Meanwhile, the girl says that she needs her mother's consent for this contract. Salted field radish, to which the woman asked why a credit company is involved in this. She remembers that she definitely saw something like that. Salted field radish. It is a loan shark with an interest rate of over 1,000%, and although she knows this, she will still sign, blinded by her own greed. This was the last chance she was giving her because, in fact, the document she had just signed had nothing to do with the moneylenders. She could have just read it from beginning to end and would have understood that very thing. And now that she got the signature, she said that this document is now proof of how she was exploited all this time. This is a bit lacking, but at least one of the requirements for the compensation notice is met. However, there are more important problems. The woman says that in any case, until she gets consent from the other side, nothing will work out. A scam. After all this, the woman asked when she could expect the dress, and the girl just laughed at this and didn't answer anything. And in the meantime, the next day had already arrived. Elin was just walking calmly down the street when 2 acquaintances ran up to her, asking what she had talked about with Sir Dillan the night before. It was Henry, a fellow civil servant, and Marilyn, also a fellow civil servant, who wanted to know everything right here and now. They shout so loudly across the street that the girl is ashamed of them. She asked them to be quieter, but the request did not work. She would have told them everything right away, and even everyone who wanted to, but for now, she needs to keep this marriage a secret. And then Marilyn changed her behavior very abruptly and began to compare their relationship as a couple of the ugly duckling and the prince. Elin already knew she was an ugly duckling, but it irritated her when she heard it from others. To distract attention, she told her colleague that she had something stuck in her teeth because she knows that after that she will definitely leave her alone and run to the mirror. Meanwhile, she returned to work and began to sort through the documents, although the thoughts in her head were completely different. She got her hands on a request from Sirs for protective equipment, and she doesn't understand yet what could threaten him like that. He didn't tell her anything about it. Eileen didn't even have time to figure it out properly before Marilyn pestered her again. She started to distract and hinted that Dillan already has a lady that he loves. She is very gentle, sweet, and something tells me that she says this about herself. If only she knew that the guy himself proposed marriage to her, and Elin didn't say a word to him about it. The girl simply didn't want to upset her ahead of time. She simply stopped listening to her and tried to relax. Meanwhile, evening came, and as Dillan promised, he quickly began to prepare a delicious dinner. He hadn't done anything like that for a long time, so he was very worried. He has already collected and bought all the necessary ingredients. The dish will require a lot of vegetables, spices, meat, and, of course, everything of the best quality. He wants to cook food so delicious that his wife would ask him to cook something every day and would not want to go into the kitchen herself. The guy found a very nice apron. It suits him very well, although Dillan himself would have worn something else, if only he had a choice. And he is also surprised that today he has the first day off in his life. He is still embarrassed to remember the reaction of the manager when he told him this. The assistant thought that this was some kind of joke or a test, because the gentleman, who worked even on holidays and spent all his time in the Knights barracks, suddenly said that he was taking a day off. This is something unreal. Rumors immediately spread about this. People began to guess what was going on. Someone thought that he had health problems. Someone talked about relationships or burnout at work. And someone was scared of him, that he was going to leave this business and he was already tired of it all. Back then, he was too embarrassed to hear all this, and every time his colleagues said something about it, his cheeks turned red. The phrase he remembered most was that he was going to get married, although there were the fewest such guesses. It seemed to him that people had already understood everything, but this is not so. Dillan started to get distracted a lot, and didn't notice how he was transported to the past and completely immersed in these memories. He spent his entire childhood locked in a small house cursed by dark magic, and he thought he would never get out of there for the rest of his days. At that time, he created a small, happy family from teddy bears. But it was not just a game. It was something like a visualization, because what interested him most in the world was the existence of a family. But for him, his father, who was his family, he never had any nice words. He called his son the shame of his life and also said horrible words that the only reason he didn't get rid of him was because he just didn't want to get his hands dirty. He wanted his son to spend the rest of his life in the North, like a chained dog, and never experience any positive emotions. And so he lived alone, dreaming of the day when he would be able to find a wife whom he would take care of. Now it's clear why he tries so hard for Elin and why he himself suggested this idea. It's very good that while he was thinking about it, not resting and preparing the plates, he managed to lay out the appetizers, prepare the main course, and as soon as he looked at the time, calmed down because everything happened just in time. He made it, and now there is no need to rush because everything is almost ready. And in the meantime, the girl had already arrived. She smelled such a wonderful smell from the threshold that she even forgot to knock. Dillan looked at her and once again made sure that she was the girl for whom he was ready to try. He understands that perhaps now she has no feelings, and this is a marriage of convenience. He would still really like for feelings to appear and for them to fall in love with each other. And he also forgot that he was standing in front of her in this funny apron, although the girl apparently didn't even notice it. He tells her that he has prepared the dinner he spoke about earlier and suggests that they sit down before the food gets cold. Elin looks at all this in such a way that it is as if they believe that he did it himself from the beginning, buying the products to the end, setting the table. He even said that he could share the recipe for any dish that she liked the most. And she doesn't know yet that there is far from everything on the table. Since today is formally their wedding day, he managed to prepare 50 dishes, and it seems to him that more could have been prepared. This is not the first time she admires him, but the ability to cook is exactly what she adores in men. She finds it so attractive, and they also say that if a girl and a guy start cooking at the same time from the same products, they will get completely different tastes. Here she is already taking the first piece. You can immediately feel that the meat is incredibly tender, although in such a short time, it is amazing how he managed to do it. She doesn't even have to chew anything. Everything literally melts in her mouth, which means that the person really understands this business. It's such an incredible feeling that she wants to eat this food until the evening and make sure that her stomach never runs out of space. If it were possible, she would be the happiest, because she had never tasted anything tastier in her life. Eileen saw the fish and was even afraid to imagine how tender it could be. If she's even crazy about meat, which should be much tougher, but it's just like fish or even softer. The girl told him that it was so wonderful that she just ate and forgot about talking, and he was very pleased to hear it. And so she asked him the first question, why he decided to marry her. She still didn't understand what benefit this would bring him, and it was too early to think that he might have sincere feelings. Without thinking how it would sound, she only asked him not to say that he liked her or something like that. And then she laughed, and it wasn't very nice from that side. Suddenly it was true, and she could offend him very much. Eileen didn't immediately realize that it would have been better if she hadn't said that. But when she did, she suddenly stopped laughing and said that it was a joke, apparently an unsuccessful one. In the end, he did answer her question. He said that he just thought it was time to get married, but it was clear that he was not telling the whole story. Apparently, he was not quite ready for a sincere conversation. She told him that she understood everything and laid out a quiet dinner, because it was very difficult to be distracted from eating by some words. It was the best compliment for him. He tried so hard, and now he is incredibly happy that she appreciated it. Out of the blue, he stops eating his portion. He wanted to add that she really deserves respect. Only Eileen didn't understand how to understand this. She asked him what it meant because she wasn't ready for such conversations. She thought that he was absolutely indifferent to her. And then this happened. And then she had thoughts that since he was saying such words, it meant that he was not like others said about him. There were all sorts of rumors about Dillan. They said that he danced with his sword on dead monsters. Others say that he coldly rejected countless female advances, or even that he was constantly surrounded by attention, but only took advantage of it and changed them every day. Now she realized that these rumors cannot be believed. She knows him as a very sweet, kind, and wonderful person. So she answered him that he also deserves such beautiful words. It's just a pity that she doesn't know how to say them. Dillan reacted strangely to this. He was apparently not used to pleasant words and did not think that she would say something in response to him. He just answered her, okay, and it looked like he didn't care, but he really did. She wondered what made him freeze like that. But since this wasn't their last meeting, she would definitely get to know him better and find the answer to this question. Meanwhile, they had already had dinner. It lasted for a very long time because it was impossible to tear yourself away. Eileen said that it was delicious, and he was silently happy. The girl asks if he has had time to look around the house, to which he replies that there are 4 rooms, and if you want, you can even invite guests here, which means it definitely won't be crowded here. The lady didn't have time to look around properly because of all this food, and she doesn't even know what's better, to look around the house or to have another delicious dinner. But the more she looks around, the more she realizes that this house is perfect, especially for her as a person, who is used to living in old cold rooms where there are no normal conditions, not even furniture and lighting. If it weren't for her relatives, for whom she gave everything she had, perhaps she would have had such a beautiful house a long time ago, for which she had to get married. It's very clean everywhere, and the living room has a beautiful view. This is the perfect home of her dreams, which turned out to be even better than she could have imagined and wished for. She immediately said that she would take a smaller room because she was not used to large spaces and it would be more comfortable for her. To which he told her that it would be better for her to take the main bedroom after all. She was not a guest here and should choose the best conditions. Dillan assures her that he likes the small space, so it's not up for discussion and she should sleep in the best room. She quickly agreed to this, thinking that something in life needs to be changed. It would be strange for her to try so hard, but in the end, she would choose the smallest room. Meanwhile, she already enters the room, immediately sees that there is a lot of things here, and it is also unusual that this is really her home. She does not realize it yet. There are a lot of toys inside, even too many, as if this were some kind of children's room, although children won't live here. It's all very nice, beautiful, but all of this will have to be given to someone or put in some storage room so it doesn't gather dust. Then they realized that this was not the main room at all. It was just an extra room for children. After all, these houses are intended for couples who are planning to have a child. Now all this doesn't seem so surprising. They even felt a little awkward after all. It's still impossible for a child to appear in this house. She is a little scared of all this, but he is absolutely calm about it. Although, really, it is just a nursery in a house that is intended for families. In the end, they said goodbye. She very quickly ran into her room to finally be alone and get used to the environment. When a girl thinks that she will now live in this house with a man, it is a little stressful, but at the same time, it causes very ambiguous emotions. When she noticed that she had a smile and a desire to return to him, she realized that addiction had already begun. And she also thought that since her fiancé had treated her to dinner, she couldn't sit idle. Tomorrow, she decided to definitely clean the house and do the laundry, but for now she could rest. Up until this moment, the girl hadn't even looked towards the bed. But now she looked and is already imagining how she will sleep here alone. This will definitely be the best evening and night of her life. 3 people can sleep on such a bed, and she will be here alone, like a queen. Elin fulfilled her childhood dream. She plopped down on the bed with a running start. She thought that the fall would be unpleasant, but it was very soft and funny. Everything is as if in the best hotel rooms and even better. She has a feeling that in a couple of days she will move out of here. But no, this is now their personal home. She didn't regret agreeing to this room. After all, it was worth it and she deserved it, and for a very long time. She has done so much for others before that she now has every right to enjoy the comfort of her new home, although it still seems too much for her. The lady is used to underestimating herself and agreeing to less, and now she will have to forget about this habit and get used to luxury. Elin was already asleep, but thunder sounded outside the window. It was so scary that she definitely wouldn't be able to fall asleep. The girl immediately got out of bed, then covered herself with a blanket because she usually did this as a child. But the habit remained. Then she realized that she couldn't see anything, and suddenly, if some villain came to her, she wouldn't even see it. She knows that as long as she is in the house, lightning should not cause any harm, but she cannot calm down. Her heart is beating so hard that she can even hear the sound. Her whole body is shaking, although she understands in her head that everything is fine, but her heart does not give her peace. The girl risked getting out of bed to drink some water, thinking that it should at least help somehow, that she would perk up a little, and that it would be better than sitting in fear on the bed. Elin calmly leaves the room, realizes that someone's shoulder pushed the door, and at that moment she starts screaming so loudly that even the neighbors could probably hear it. After that, she saw the silhouette of a man, as if she forgot that she lived with her fiancé and fell off her feet from fear. Then she hit her head against the wall, made a noise, but nothing terrible happened. He went out into the corridor just like she did. The guy apologized for scaring her, and then said that he just couldn't sleep, so he decided to go for a walk. Then he gave her his hand so that she could get up, to which the girl replied that she wanted to drink some water, and for some reason forgot that she didn't live there alone. Then she realized that it was just a habit and there was nothing wrong with it. Suddenly, she sees a strange rattle in his hand, and he says that he just found it in the room and started shaking it. Elin was so sleepy that she didn't even know what to talk to him about, so she reminded him that she wanted water and started to leave. At that very moment, thunder rumbled. She turned sharply towards him and began to hide. It became much easier for her. At that moment, the guy felt like a man. He was pleased that she intuitively approached him, which means she feels support and encouragement in him. She immediately felt very ashamed of this, although he explained that it was normal and there was nothing wrong with it. Especially if she feels more comfortable around him, he is only happy to help and come at those moments when it is needed. And he also gave her this rattle. He thinks that it is very cute and distracts her from the storm, but he judges this only by himself. What if this method doesn't work for her? She wasn't even embarrassed to say that such toys definitely won't calm her down. Elin thought that he could not help her anymore and told him that she was very grateful to him for his support, because even the fact that he offered her a rattle meant that he cared about her. He also enjoys hearing such words. They even stopped hearing the frightening sounds, or rather, stopped noticing them. Then he felt how her hands were shaking and thought that now he also needed to do something. And since he had never had such an experience, he decided to just take her hand, warm it with his warmth, and he really guessed right. It was very sweet and right of him. Although the warmth of his hands did not warm her completely, such an act definitely warmed her heart, and her hands no longer tremble. And then he starts asking if maybe she needs something else. She can only say it, and he will do it. The girl couldn't think of anything. They just went into the room and he asked why she wasn't going to bed, and she replied that she just couldn't. She felt very embarrassed that he was so worried about her because, probably, if they had not met, he would have been asleep long ago. Elin thanked him for everything he had done for her, then asked him not to worry about her and to go and rest, because if she didn't fall asleep until the morning, he wouldn't get enough sleep either, and she didn't want that. The guy clearly doesn't think about going anywhere. He's still next to her on the sofa and made it clear that he won't leave her here alone. Moreover, he can't fall asleep either, and together it will be more fun and not so scary if thunder appears again. After some time, he had a great idea. Dylan remembered that before in such situations, one remedy helped him quite well. It's warm milk with honey, which is great for helping you fall asleep. He prepared this drink very quickly and offered her to try it. He showed his concern once again. It was very nice. She even told him that such a wedding night with him was something amazing. She even thinks that it's good that everything turned out this way because if they were sleeping, it wouldn't be as pleasant and interesting as talking in such a thunderstorm in the middle of the night. This day will be remembered by them for a long time, so maybe it's not so bad that everything turned out this way, because emotions and memories are something very valuable. The guy was a little embarrassed and shy when she said the word wedding night. His face turned slightly red, but the girl did not notice it because it was dark in the room. They still look so sweetly into each other's eyes, but from the outside it looks as if in a couple more days they will start to feel something for each other. Because if they didn't even have thoughts about it, they wouldn't look like that. Elin thought that since they would have to sit here for a long time, she told about her family, or rather, about the relationship between them. She says that these people became her enemies. She never noticed how they used her and didn't even hide it. During all this time, she gave them so much money that she could have built several houses with this amount, and maybe more. But since they now live together, she will make sure that these people do not even come near them, and preferably do not even know this address. Elin imagines how her mother will want to meet when she realizes what she signed the last time they saw her. The guy doesn't realize that if these people find out where Elin lives, they will come here every day, and maybe even make him guilty, because before him, she was like that, as it was convenient for them. After that, without thinking, she asked, what about his family? What interesting things he could tell. They are now husband and wife, and she seems to have the right to know what kind of relationship he has with them and who these people are. He didn't even have time to answer. Another loud thunder sounded, so the girl grabbed her head, because she hates loud sounds more than anything. At such moments, she loses control of herself. But if that was all that bothered her, it would be great. But now she also has terrible memories, those in which she experienced approximately the same sensations. When she covered her ears, he took her hand, apologized, and said that he had to make some decision. It would probably be better if he stayed with her until the morning tonight, because it would be calmer for both of them. Because even if she falls asleep and he is in another room, the mere thought that she might get scared again and he won't be there will make him just not fall asleep. It was very nice to hear this. And at that very moment, she had a memory of what her mother usually told her in such cases. She complained that her daughter was already an adult, but she was afraid of thunderstorms like a little child and screamed so loudly that it was impossible to fall asleep. Sometimes the girl even cried, closed herself under the blanket so that no one could hear her. But it didn't help. But you could just hug the child and fall asleep with him in the same room. Instead, she was constantly told that she was the one causing the inconvenience, and that if she weren't there, everyone would be happy. They even suggested that she go to work at that age, earn money, and quickly move somewhere so that she would be afraid of thunderstorms separately from them and cry in another house. That's what always meant to her. Family? Despite the fact that they were related by blood, they were worse than strangers. She and Dillan are only connected by a marriage contract, which will end in less than a year. But maybe he will become closer to her than her own mother. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace, as usual, no one is sleeping. It's as if the concept of late doesn't exist here. Out of the blue, His Majesty for some reason needed to go down to the basement at such a time, and he says that he just needs to find something for tomorrow. There is a large library here. He found some green book very quickly, and all because everything here is arranged in a special sequence. And if you need something specific, you can easily find it in a matter of seconds. It's not clear why yet, but he asked his assistant to go with him, and the man showed how much he didn't want it. Meanwhile, the assistant noticed that the gentleman looked a little too happy today, unlike how he usually does. The guy asked if that was really true, and he replied that he heard him humming something to himself. The guy didn't answer anything to this. He continues to smile and doesn't really say anything about what they are doing here, and most importantly, why. The man doesn't understand. Couldn't it have been postponed until tomorrow? Until the morning? Or could he have gotten up a couple of hours earlier than standing here in the middle of the night? The Emperor has always been an unpredictable person. He's very curious, always experiments with something new and cannot live the same way every day. He always needs changes. They say that if you cross a rhinoceros with a horse, you get a unicorn. This is exactly what the guy talks about with his assistants almost every day, and doesn't even want to listen to anything that everything is not quite so. Assistants are used to such strange questions, and moreover, most often the guy does not even listen to what they answer him. Recently, he even grew giant fruits because he was just curious to see what it looked like and what would come out of it. He also wanted to organize a festival with them, but they talked him out of it, and it was the first time he listened to anyone. Emperors are not usually the kindest people, but he loves the people madly and tries to do everything to make them happy, arranges holidays for them, free food, and much more. Especially children, they always come first for him. When he sees an unhappy child, he never passes by. There was even a case when he gave one girl a lot of food and money, enough for several years, and people in turn value and respect him. They don't want someone else to take his place. Because I think that there is no better ruler. Meanwhile, Elin slept very well. She didn't notice at what moment she fell asleep, but it doesn't matter anymore. She was woken up by a beautiful sound from the street. A bird was singing somewhere nearby, and this is the best alarm clock you can think of. She slowly opens her eyes, remembers that this is her new home. The girl felt relieved because at the moment, she doesn't even have any problems. At some point, she felt a very pleasant smell. It was the aroma of food. But really, her husband decided to please her with his masterpieces today. The girl got ready very quickly. She couldn't wait to see what he was doing there, that the smell was filling the whole house. She went into the kitchen and saw so much that her eyes began to run wild. What was so bright and healthy looked like the perfect breakfast. He even prepared several dishes to choose from because he knows nothing about her preferences or what she can't have. Elin heard some sound, turned to the side, but did not expect to see that he would be wearing almost no clothes. Dillan is wearing only pants and has a towel hanging over his shoulders as if he just got out of the shower. It doesn't seem like he's embarrassed or awkward. It's more the girl who feels it because she's never seen him like that before. It was so unexpected that she was confused and forgot all the words. She wanted to say hello to him, but he seemed to charm her, and she just stood there. And when she realized that he saw how she looked at his body, she felt terribly awkward and started to run away, as if she had forgotten something. She told him that she hadn't seen anything, and had already forgotten about the breakfast that she had just dreamed of eating until the last cup. It even seemed to him that she felt uncomfortable looking at his body. But this is not at all the case. It is exactly the opposite. He even thought about working harder on his appearance. But the guy doesn't even realize that he is very wrong. Meanwhile, they had already arrived at work. It so happened that they work in the same place and leave the house together too. To make it less awkward for his wife, he walked behind her on purpose as if they had come here separately. He keeps a certain distance from her, and she noticed it only now and was surprised that he even thought of it. She felt pleased that he cared about it. She understood that he did it for her, such a small thing. But how important it was. She also noticed that the more she sees him, the more attentive he seems to her. On the one hand, it is very annoying. But on the other, she even likes it. Something inside her began to remind her that she had already promised herself not to trust people so much. But now the girl had a slightly different opinion about it. Those people she trusted before, everything was obvious there. But this person at least tries for her, and in one day did more than her own mother. These voices inside remind her that the contract will end in a year if she gets too used to it. It will be very painful to part. Meanwhile, she was going about her business and accidentally saw some acquaintances who were indignant about something. They blame some boy, supposedly he managed to screw up on his first day. He apologizes, and they seem not to hear it. As it turned out, that boy was given some kind of task, but he couldn't cope with it, and now he can't even leave them calmly. From their conversation, you can tell that he destroyed some documents, and to restore them, you have to try really hard. At that moment, Elin couldn't pass by. She stood in the middle of them and started to defend the boy because he is a child and you can't seriously demand anything from him. If it didn't work out, then that's okay, especially since adults make mistakes too. And at the very least, someone had no right to ask someone else's child for something. He is clearly not 18 years old, and if they start to stand up for him, it will clearly not be his fault. There were a lot of people gathered around. Everyone was interested in listening to what they were discussing there. There were more people just from the moment Elin joined them. In the end, she managed to somehow protect the boy. She asked him if everything was okay, but he was too silent and didn't say anything. And she also noticed a special ring on his hand. Such an unusual ring with a fake gemstone, a mixture of amethyst and sapphire colors. Before her rebirth, the girl had already seen this ring. This ring was for camouflage. Before her rebirth, this ring became incredibly popular and became fashionable. But now it is not sold yet, so it must be very expensive. It's strange that an ordinary worker can wear this ring. For now, the girl tried not to think about it, told him where he could have a snack and relax in a quiet place. Meanwhile, in the huge arena, a competition began. Among the participants was Sir Dillan, whom many people came to see. As usual, the competition didn't last long at all. He defeated his opponent in a matter of minutes, and his fans didn't even doubt it, just like he did. He treats such small competitions as he would normally do at a training session, and since people come, he is very happy to cheer them up. It was another flawless victory. Naturally, after so many years, such moments are no longer perceived as the first victories, but it is also very pleasant. He is even interested in losing to someone, so that he has an incentive to grow further. But such strong opponents have not yet been found. He was just thinking about leaving when he accidentally overheard a conversation between two girls who were gossiping about his personal life, not noticing that he was right next to him. They discussed the rumors that those two are dating. Although he shouldn't care, these words somehow touched him. And in the meantime, the girl is still talking to this boy. She is trying to find out who he is and what he did that made them yell at him like that. And he stands in front of her and can't say a single word. The thing is that even though he introduced himself as Ford, that's not his real name, and he doesn't actually look like that. The emperor of this empire is hiding in this body. He disguised himself, and that is why he was looking for something in the library so late yesterday. He just happens to be in this knightly order in this form. He wants to know what his brother's wife is like, which means he doesn't even realize that she just saved him. He has to pretend that he is a new guy who hasn't been announced or introduced to anyone yet. The boy apologized for causing her trouble, and she replied that any normal person would have done the same in her place. Even though she has no idea who is really wrong in this situation, she wants to give advice. Learn to stand up for herself because among such people, without this skill, you can't get anywhere. She also told him that if he wanted, he could stay here. She just had some business here and she didn't mind his company. He looked at her as if he had just realized something and guessed everything. Eileen noticed this and asked, what was the matter? Why did he look at her as if she looked like a human before and now she was a monster? It turns out he just remembered that she had already said her name and it just happened to match the name his brother had told him. The emperor even thought that she might not be as good as she seemed. He wanted to stay with her longer to see her real face. And in the meantime, they just came to Dillan. But only the emperor knows how it looks from the outside. But the rest don't even suspect anything. His brother had just dealt with everyone who wanted to fight him, and there was not a single worthy opponent among them. Then he looked towards his wife and saw her with some boy, which immediately gave him a very strange feeling. This had never happened before, but this time, he just looked at him, and he himself doesn't know why. But he wanted to tear this man apart no matter how it sounds. The guy asks what brought the girl here and who she came with because he had never seen this person before. The emperor began to cover himself with his hood, even turned away, apparently feeling that he was causing too much suspicion and his brother could understand everything. Elin told him that she had just defended the child a couple of minutes ago, and the boy was still standing with his back to them and said that he was pleased to meet her. Dillan felt like they were heading to the warehouse. She told him that they were, and was surprised that he guessed it so easily, as if he had read her mind. He had just said that he wanted to go with them when the boy grabbed the girl by the hand and said that they were in a big hurry. Eileen didn't even have time to say goodbye to her husband, and both she and the guy already see something strange in him, but they don't know what exactly yet. The girl just waved her hand to her husband and said that they would see each other at home, because she would be very busy until the end of the day and would not be able to approach him. He felt a very warm feeling inside. He felt good just from her smile and happy look. Meanwhile, he had already returned to his office, happily settled down on the sofa, and began to tell how hard it was to spend the whole day on your feet. He wanted to sit so much that even in this position he was productive and completed all the work that he wanted to delegate to someone else. The guy felt that everything he had done before was not as hard as he thought. Meanwhile, the emperor had already learned that his brother lived with his wife in the same house, and also that the house was as luxurious as it could be because Dillan had so much money that he could easily buy a whole castle. The brother thought that since Dillan was hiding his true condition, it meant that he could test his chosen one, and he fully supported him in this. The emperor is very glad that he found out the exact address where they can be found. And so far, he is very pleased with his investigations, and also said a strange phrase that something interesting would happen very soon. Literally, a couple of hours later, Dillan and Elin found a letter near their house and opened it together to read. At first, they didn't understand what it was. Who could have sent it to them? And they were also very scared by the fact that there was too much text in the letter, as if there was something very important in it. The guy suggested reading the letter out loud, and she asked him to do it more slowly so that she could take in the informations. It says the following: Greetings to all residents of the Imperial District of Newlyweds. This weekend there will be a picnic for newlyweds. The first event of the mandatory program. Participation is mandatory. Absences are strictly prohibited. A special policy of providing housing to young families helps newlyweds buy houses in the capital. Due to the sharp rise in housing prices in the capital, due to foreign influence, it has become almost impossible for average citizens to buy housing. But now, preparations for this picnic are in full swing. A lot of people are involved, and so far everything looks far from what was planned. They are already starting to argue among themselves about how to do something better, and all because everyone is too responsible for their work and wants to achieve the best result, even though they are not doing it for themselves. Some are only unhappy with the fact that they work on their day off. That's the only thing that sometimes doesn't suit them. Of all those involved in this business, there is a certain Emmanuel, who is full of ambition. For the sake of work, he even rejected marriage, since he became the director of the housing department. However, this is still not enough for him. After the social housing project, he has a plan that will allow him to achieve much greater success. He wants to rise much higher and one day achieve significant authority, more than that of the emperor himself. Meanwhile, he explains to everyone what they will have to do in the near future. They have a very important mission, and no one can handle it better than them. They must determine whether these couples who will come today are real newlyweds, and if anyone has any suspicions about this, they must definitely inform the director. Meanwhile, people are already starting to come together little by little. The first group of people arrived almost on time. There are more than 6 of them. They thanked the organizers for such a wonderful opportunity to meet their neighbors because they had never been able to do this before. It would be very interesting to know if there are any of these people who got married in a fake marriage, like Dillan and Aline did. Naturally, they also came right away, not late, so as not to arouse any unnecessary suspicions. But unlike all the other people, they seemed to be dissatisfied with something. That team immediately recognized this couple. Someone even suggested that this girl could be that very civil servant. One of them confirmed that the girl really works in the administration, and he even knows her personally. Their main noticed that for a married couple, they were too cold to each other, to which the assistant replied that perhaps the others who looked too happy were just pretending. And these two just came for a picnic and really were a real couple. Because as it usually happens, those who are trying to prove something do it with all their might, and those who don't care and have nothing to fear don't try to seem like someone. The commander is completely confused. He no longer knows what to think about them. Now he only has more questions for those who look too joyful and happy. Because people can't smile all the time, even when nothing special is happening and they aren't communicating with anyone. Elin even behaves very naturally, unlike some. And she also looked towards this guy and thought that she had definitely seen him somewhere before. It's a bit disgusting to be among these couples who seem to have been asked to play the role of a happy couple in the theater. But this is ordinary life and you don't have to behave like that. And she also thought that since everyone was so happy, they should try to act as if they at least didn't hate each other. The guy also thinks that we need to do something, for example, hold hands or come closer to each other's. And then they really look like they were asked to pretend that they were together. She gives him her hand. But from the outside, it looks a little strange, absolutely unnatural. The main thing is that no one notices it. Then they will be able to get used to each other and will no longer be as shy as they were just now, although they just needed to hold hands. Why didn't they think of practicing at home before? At least they wouldn't feel awkward and it would be much more comfortable. Meanwhile, the organizers announced that they are about to start the flower picnic and want to make sure that everyone has brought special blankets. People replied that they had not forgotten anything, and the organizers asked them to get out their food and enjoy their meal. The 3 who asked to identify the fake couples feel very awkward, and it seems to them that everyone understands why they are there. The food looks so delicious that even the director wanted to join them, and then remembered that he was at work and should not forget what he was doing here. The desserts are so beautiful that you want to admire them and don't even want to touch them to spoil anything. While other people were already eating their food, these 2 didn't even touch the basket, and this made that man suspicious. He asked them, what was the matter? Had they really not taken anything? And he also became interested in seeing what they had in their basket. The guy the girl recognized, he says that they even look like they were forced to come here. It turns out it was a trick from Dillan. He deliberately drew attention to himself so that they would come up, open the basket themselves, look at this and understand how much he loves his wife, that he even made a dish with her portrait. At least he tried to make it look like it. Everyone started saying that it was impossible to do something like this without great love. It became clear to everyone that he just wanted to make a surprise, and the other girls were upset that their husbands hadn't thought of doing something similar. Even Elin didn't expect this from him. She didn't know how to react to it, so she just looked at everyone around her. And she is also haunted by this guy. It's as if he is trying to put her down and does it very carefully. And in the meantime, the girl's mother finds out that her own daughter deceived her for the first time and did it so cleverly that she didn't even notice. The woman throws everything she can at her friend, even a huge chair that she could barely lift. Although in her rage she didn't even notice its weight. She called her all the bad names she knew. Although somewhere inside she understands that she deserved it a long time ago, but still thinks that it is unfair. She doesn't understand how it was possible to treat her own mother so meanly. Although this is the least she deserves and she should be grateful that the girl didn't come up with something more serious. She couldn't even calmly hold this notice of the claim for damages in her hands. She was informed that by law, she was now obliged to pay compensation to her daughter. Naturally, the amount is not small. The woman is very poor at understanding all these documents. She called her second daughter who can help. The girl went to sort things out this morning, but she was denied a loan. Only the woman does not understand why she cannot use her daughter's name because she is part of their family. The girl said that she was told that Aylin was no longer part of the family and that it was no longer possible to take out a single loan in her name. When checking, it turned out that the lady had changed her last name. And the first thing the woman thought was that her daughter had married Pedro after all. Then we didn't find out that it wasn't so, and we were very upset. They still have hope. Only Pedro will come up with something, but he is very nervous and also wants to talk to them about this. It turns out that the girl sent him an official letter demanding compensation for everything she gave and bought him. He never thought that this would happen. Besides all this, they are also obliged to give back all the gifts, even those that were damaged or lost. The woman has no idea what to do now. She didn't expect such a trap, and the only thing she wants is to look into those impudent eyes and say everything she thinks about her. Mom even dared to say that she raised and loved her children equally and does not understand why she is being punished like this, although everyone knows and remembers how it really was. Very often, the woman would go shopping with her younger daughter and ask the older one to clean the whole house, and would also punish her very severely if she was not happy with something. While Pedro is lying on the floor, the two decide to find out how the girl managed to get married at all, and most importantly, to whom. The girl says that she has a friend in the palace, and thanks to him, she will be able to find out who their traitor married. And she is also sure that whoever is there, it is unlikely that anyone will be able to truly love Elin, because she does not deserve it. This guy, and that very friend who is especially interested in finding out what kind of relationship they have and how real it is. So far, it looks like they are a beautiful couple who just recently started living together. That's why they are so shy. And he also starts to ruin their picnic on purpose, saying that the portrait doesn't prove anything yet because this can be done without true love, just to deceive others, and he is almost sure of it. At this point, the girl couldn't take it anymore. She doesn't like that they are getting so much attention, and now she wants to show what true love looks like. She specifically called her husband cute because she heard other girls say that to their husbands. He also got into character, smiled at her, and pretended as if he wanted to kiss her. But he didn't because there were too many people around and he didn't want to screw up. In the end, everything turned out so well for them that they even won the cup as the cutest couple, and everyone who competed with them for it began to envy them. People asked the guy to pick the girl up in his arms as expected. She didn't mind, but still felt a little embarrassed. That day, they became the most loving couple in the entire newlywed district, and the girl immediately told her husband about the spy so that he could deal with him properly later. Dillan thought that from now on, all his wife's enemies automatically became his enemies, and he usually doesn't leave them unpunished. She asked him to be careful with them, and he thinks that they should be careful, unless of course they want to run into him when he has a sword in his hands. For example, some late evening, when they will return home, not expecting that retribution has come for all these atrocities that they have done. The next day at the same time, Dillan decided to do something very wise. So as not to leave any evidence, he simply asked to transfer that spy to the countryside. And he explained this by saying that he has a terrible attitude towards work, and he still needs to work a lot to deserve to stay in the capital. The emperor agreed very quickly. He usually does not argue with his brother. On the contrary, he is only glad if he notices some shortcomings among the employees. After that, they started talking about the report that the emperor had recently read. It said that last night his brother had discovered a dangerous item that could explode. The guy calmed him down and told him that the object had already been completely neutralized and that the situation was completely under his control. Red Castle, a large group plotting to overthrow the empire. Since that explosion in the Theater Million, 20 years ago, they are listed as the palace's most wanted criminals. Dillan says that actually someone has a suspect in mind, and if needed, he can find out more information about him. He gave a name, Fordo, and said that this man works in the department of the Palace Knights management and is absolutely useless. Also very suspicious and shamelessly communicates with noble data. Some amazing coincidence. If only he knew who he was actually describing. The brother reacted very strangely, and the guy realized that something was wrong. He asked to explain what was going on, but His Majesty replied that everything was fine. Supposedly, he had just worked a lot and was very tired that day. Apparently, he was in no hurry to tell him the truth. Meanwhile, Elan's sister is already talking to her friend and asking him to tell her everything he noticed, preferably in all the details and particulars. The guy said that such a guy in the end everyone envied. Some girls even cried from how her sister's husband tries for her. And especially everyone is crazy about the portrait made of food. He also said that the husband was a famous knight, and the girl's thoughts at that moment were only about how her sister found such a guy and how they got married. She always thought that her sister was unworthy of such a relationship, but in the end everything turned out so that she has only envied her lately. A friend described the man as an incredibly handsome knight, tall and so handsome that if he were a girl, he would be one of his fans. The envious sister can't believe that this is possible, and even if it is possible for her, she won't let those two people live in peace, especially after what happened. In the end, she thanked her friend, told him that she didn't even know what she had done without him and that his help was very valuable. He was very pleased to hear this. He is always happy to help her, and also, he is the only one among her circle who sees something good in her. She smiled so ominously, and this means only one thing. Now she will take revenge on her sister not only for the fact that it will now be impossible to receive money from her and for all this compensation, but also for the fact that Elan is happier than her. And then she thought that while her friend had not gone anywhere, he could help her. She presented it as if he did not help her, then no one else could do it. She explained that she wanted to go somewhere with him, but she never said why she needed it, probably for a reason. Meanwhile, some preparations are taking place in the Imperial Palace. The Emperor's personal assistant is very careful to ensure that everything is carried out according to schedule, without any deviations. He asks to arrange flowers, make all the decorations on the walls white, and cast life-sustaining magic on all the flowers. His Majesty came to check how everything was going, to which the man replied that so far everything was fine. They were even making it much faster than he thought. They started talking about how time flies. It was just cold recently, and now it's a beautiful spring, which pleases them with its fruits. Some time passed. His Majesty returned to the office and invited his brother to finally find out how he was doing. He was very interested to hear how things were going with his family life, to which the guy replied that they had recently gone on a newlyweds picnic. Dillan told everything in detail, even that he called his wife baby and that she really liked it. My brother immediately felt very ashamed of him. He wanted to hope that he just misheard or misunderstood him. Then the brother asked how real it was between them. Because from what he understands, Dillan is really trying hard in this relationship. The guy replied that he loved her so much that even if she ever said that she fell in love with another, he would let her go, as long as Elan was happy. He hadn't really thought about it before, but now he realized that he couldn't imagine his life without her. Not much time had passed, but it was enough for him to understand everything for himself. He is his brother, but His Majesty has never seen such a look from him. He is not used to the fact that Dillan has become such a family man. Meanwhile, announcements appeared everywhere that a ball for civil servants would soon be held at the Imperial Palace. Location: Imperial Palace. The girl already knows who she will go there with, although usually there were huge problems with this and she was ashamed to come alone. And now she has not just a partner, she will come there with her husband, and she is sure that this time she will definitely not feel out of place. As soon as she approached this announcement, she immediately heard gossip. Some even hung over to call her husband a handsome man, and her a monster, although this phrase sounds the other way around. People are already starting to gossip that if those two show up at the event, it will definitely mean that they are together. Even if the girl didn't want to go there, she would still come to prove to everyone that she has a husband and that she's not deceiving anyone. And of course, it wouldn't have happened without a sudden meeting with these two, who were always more interested in other people's lives than in their own. They only know how to discuss others and nothing more.